The sickness at the heart of authoritarianism is not communism or socialism or capitalism. It's control, authoritarian control. That's the true cancer. Soviet communism was authoritarian communism. Maoism was authoritarian socialism. And if you think our own gilded oligarchy hasn't mutated into authoritarian capitalism, you haven't been paying attention. And you can call it whatever you want, but the disease doesn't care about the name. It strangles liberty anyway. The playbook never changes. Convince the people that their safety depends on giving up someone else's rights. Tell them liberty is dangerous and that only authority can save them. Offer protection while quietly tightening the leash. That's the formula. It worked in Rome, it worked in Weimar Germany, and it is being run page for page right now in America. And the brutal truth is this. When you hear whispers in your own movement that maybe Hitler wasn't all wrong or that maybe some of his ideas made sense, you need to stop pretending you're shocked. Of course you agree with him. That's the whole trap. He didn't rise to power by waving a swastika and promising mass graves. He rose by wrapping himself in nostalgia, by singing hymns of faith, by turning patriotism into nationalism, and telling ordinary Germans that he was the only thing standing between them and collapse. He didn't come to power because people feared him. That came later. He came to power because people believed him. They believed him when he told them that foreigners were their enemies. They believed him when he said that universities and newspapers were lying. They believed him when he told them that their traditions were under siege and only he could save them. And they woke up to find that everything they thought they were defending had been destroyed by his hands. Bertrand Russell once said that fascism empowers the ignorant and muzzles the intelligent. It's not a warning, it's a diagnosis. Because fascism doesn't come with a name tag. It doesn't march into the room saying, "Hello, I'm fascism." It calls itself patriotism. It calls itself Christian nationalism. It calls itself tradition, heritage, family values. But when you peel away the labels, the word underneath has never changed. Fascist. And the bitter pill here for you conservatives cheering on Trump is that you aren't the first to be conned, and you certainly won't be the last. Because generations grow comfortable and fat on the idea that constitutions and declarations are talismans, that words on parchment will protect them without effort. They forget what Madison and Hamilton and Patrick Henry screamed from the rooftops. Liberty survives only if it is defended every single day. Not just in your favorite corners, not just for the rights you personally like, but for the whole damn package. And no one warned us more clearly than James Madison. In Federal 46, Madison didn't mince words. He said plainly that liberty should never be traded for safety. He wrote that the power of the federal government was designed to be checked. Checked by the states, checked by the people, and checked by militias made of ordinary citizens. He warned that tyrants gain power by convincing people to accept restrictions in the name of protection. And he told us that people had both the means and the duty to resist that. Madison's message was this: the great danger is not that foreign armies will march in and conquer us. The great danger is that we will surrender to our own government out of fear, that we will hand over our rights one at a time, thinking we are buying safety, until we wake up to find out we have none left. And now look at what you're cheering for. You applaud Trump when he sends federal troops into American cities. You nod along when he talks about nationalizing the Guard, turning it into his personal army. You chant his name when he tells you that immigrants are criminals and that protesters are terrorists and that the radical left is the enemy. Do you not see it? This is exactly the playbook Madison wrote about. This is the very blueprint of authoritarianism. The National Guard was never meant to be a federal standing army. It was meant to be a state militia, answerable to governors, rooted in local communities. That was a compromise. The founders feared a permanent federal army because they knew history. They knew that standing armies have always been the tools of tyranny. Madison wrote that state militias were a powerful check upon the regular troops. Hamilton in Federal 29 agreed that while militias should be trained, they should remain under state control. And in Federal 28, he told us that if government ever turned its force against the people had both the right and the duty to resist. The anti-federalists were even more blunt. They warned that a federal army would always be used against its own citizens. They said liberty and military occupation could never coexist. That is why the balance was struck. A small federal force for defense, state militias for liberty, that is the architecture of freedom. To federalize the Guard is to tear down that architecture. It is to give the president exactly the tools the founders feared most. And here's what you don't want to admit. Military occupation doesn't solve crime. It doesn't heal poverty. It doesn't build opportunity. It just moves the problem. It creates an illusion of control long enough for the cameras to roll and for a strong man to strut around. And then the rock comes back, maybe worse than before. If you want to know what actually solves crime, it's dignity and schools funded instead of starved, wages that sustain instead of degrade, communities with hope instead of despair. That's how you stop crime. But you don't want to hear that, because it's easier to cheer for tanks than to demand dignity, and that is the shame of it. You wave your flags and you chant your slogans, but in your fear you are handing out the very freedoms you claim to worship. You are trading liberty for the illusion of safety, exactly as Madison warned against. You are applauding the destruction of the Constitution in the name of saving it, and one day, not long from now, you will wake up to find your children living under the very yoke Madison begged you to resist. That's not conservatism. That is cowardice. And cowardice wrapped in a flag is still fucking cowardice. The founders were not saints, but they were not fools either. They knew what tyranny looked like. They saw it in kings who promised safety in exchange for obedience. They knew that when fear rules, liberty dies. They built a system designed to resist that. And now you are cheering for the dismantling of it, brick by brick, with the same hollow grin that Germans wore when they raised their arms to salute a con man. Do not tell me you are defending freedom while you beg to be ruled. Do not tell me you love liberty while you cheer for tanks in your streets. And do not dare call yourselves patriots while you trample the warnings of Madison, Hamilton, and every damn soul who ever fought to keep this country free. You see, liberty is not safe. Liberty is dangerous. It is messy, it is inconvenient, it is uncomfortable, and that is exactly why it's worth having. Do not trade it away for the hollow promise of safety, because you will get neither. Defiance till death.